Okay, on.
I have a question. Is there somebody here from Ramat-Gan?
From Ramat-Gan, or
Well,
that's going to talk about Ramat-Gan?
Oh, but nobody's here from there.
Not that I know of, but you know what?
Oh.
You never know.
I used to have neighbors who came from there and then they went back years ago. But I thought, oh my God, I never met anybody from Ramat-Gan before.
When Rita presents, she could tell, she might know who you should contact.
No, that's okay. Very long ago. I just saw the name and I thought, oh, maybe there are people there who know my friends. My former neighbors. They're not even my friends.
Wait, did you live there?
I'm sorry. No. I lived in New York.
Oh.
And they came to New York for a few years and then they went back.
All right, Rita, we'll start 12:31, so about a minute and a half.
And I see that Mimi Levinson is on the call. Mimi is a member of our Ramat-Gan committee.
Oh, nice. I don't know if let me see if her mic's on. Hold on.
I don't see anything.
Her audio
there.
is not on yet, so let's see. Yeah.
She hasn't run through it. I don't know.
So she's gonna be able to see you but not hear you.
Okay.
But I'm gonna.
Well, hello, Mimi.
Oh, you know what? I do have closed captions, so if she's looking at the screen, she'll see that.
Isn't that where the safari park is?
There is a
Which
famous park in Ramat-Gan. Yes, in fact,
With the animal-
we have had exchanges between the Ramat-Gan Zoological Society and the Phoenix Zoo.
Yes, quite a place.
I think I have cousins that live there, actually.
She was there, one of the gals was asking if you knew anybody from there. You have a little cousin there?
Yeah, I think Shimon.
Shimon lives there?
Yeah.
What are you
All
gonna
right.
ask her?
I say we begin, and whoever comes on in the middle will just miss the first part. Oh, I see you got a bunch of people jumping on right now. All right, so we're going to begin. I just want to welcome everyone back from the weekend, I should say. Although if you were brave enough to join us last night for trivia night, we definitely had some fun yesterday evening. Highest score was 23 out of 31 questions, and it was not me. So I'm just putting that out there. But today we do have the great privilege of learning about something that's always fascinated me, and I really didn't know enough about it, but today I'm going to learn as well. Phoenix, the city, has a number of sister cities, and I was always fascinated because one of those cities is a city in Israel. And as I started learning more about this after I asked Rita, who will be presenting today, Rita Marko, to present, I went on that website. I'm like, oh, wow, there are a number of sister cities. So today we're going to learn more about this program from Rita Marko, who's the president and CEO of what we call, or what the city calls, the Phoenix Sister Cities. We'll learn about this organization, what it represents, what they try to cultivate, and we'll learn more about the cities that are involved with this. So I'm going to share the floor, as they say, or the screen, with Rita Marko. So thank you very much, Rita, for your time. And we're looking forward to learning about this.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for taking time, perhaps away from lunch. I hope you've all had a good lunch, but taking some time to learn about Phoenix Sister Cities. I've prepared some slides. So Rabbi has been kind enough to share with me his screen sharing privileges. So I'm going to go ahead and start the slides. I'm going to ask that, unless it's a really pertinent question to something you're seeing on the screen, if you could hold your questions until the end, and then we can talk for as long as you like about whatever you want to talk about with regard to sister cities. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing that screen now. And hopefully, can you see it says Phoenix Sister Cities? Yes, excellent. Thank you, Rabbi. So Phoenix Sister Cities came out of a movement out of the Dwight D. Eisenhower White House. As you may remember, Dwight D. Eisenhower was the Allied commander in Europe and in World War II. And his experiences in World War II caused him to think about how to achieve lasting global peace. And so he convened a summit at the White House in 1956. And that summit was on citizen diplomacy because President Eisenhower believed that peace really was more appropriately forged between citizens, not governments, that citizens were far more invested in a peaceful world than their governments were. So as an outcome of that 1956 conference on on citizen diplomacy, Sister Cities was established in 1972. It's part of a national and now international movement to generate relationships between the residents of cities across the globe. And those relationships are conceived as sisters between two different municipalities. So we'll talk about our sister cities in a moment. So who we are is really what we want to talk a little bit about. Our mission is to foster relationships between the people of Phoenix and our sister cities around the world to promote friendship, peace, and prosperity. And here you see a photo of Dean Sherman Elliott from GCU in Taipei, Taiwan, as part of a delegation we took to Taiwan in 2019. But the whole notion is to allow people to meet each other, person to person, to develop relationships that then make it less likely that we will blow each other up. As you can imagine, it's much harder to blow someone up if you know them or if your economy is dependent upon them. And I think that's the underlying premise of the Sister Cities movement. Our vision, the world at peace. Do we think that that's possible? Well, we certainly hope so. Do we think it's incredibly difficult? Yes. Toward that end, we have developed some values we want to share with the community. So our values are about people, embracing the dignity and humanity and uniqueness of individuals. Integrity, maintaining the highest standards of professional and ethical behavior. Sharing and caring. And this manifests itself in a number of ways when we share knowledge with other cities and they share knowledge with us. So for example, in very, very early in 2019, we received a council person from Taipei, Taiwan, who came to warn us about COVID. And that enabled us to share some of that information with Maricopa County and the city. Inclusion and hospitality, the notion that we must welcome everyone because everyone's wisdom has value and enriches us all. Education, that teaching and learning and inquiry and exploration help develop a shared appreciation of the world and one another. And that art and culture are a window onto the soul. And so we promote sharing other people's arts and their cultures here in Phoenix, and then we strive to share ours with them. We currently have 10 sisters. I'm not going to read them all because I think you can all see them, but they're kind of small actually. So the two oldest are Hermosillo, Mexico, and Himeji, Japan. And the most recent one is Prague in the Czech Republic. As Rabbi mentioned earlier, Ramat-Gan, Israel is also one of our sisters. And I think I mentioned before some of you got on that Mimi Levinson is on this call and has been a member of our Ramat-Gan committee. I can explain our committee structure in a moment. But here's the breaking news and the exciting news. We are probably going to add up to 4 sisters over the next several years. And that we're starting with Suwon, South Korea. They approached City of Phoenix as a potential sister. And then we are seeking an Indian sister city, so a city in India. And there are currently 4 potential candidates. And then Cape Town, South Africa, and Santiago, Chile. And you may ask yourself how we select sisters. In the past, and this is true across the United States, a number of sister cities were former World War enemies. Again, remembering that this came out of the White House Summit on Citizen Diplomacy and Dwight D. Eisenhower's perspective on world peace. Sister cities were encouraged to seek sisters in Germany, Japan, France, Russia, China. So there were, again, looking toward places where there may have been some conflict with the United States. Our sisters have been chosen, currently our sisters are being chosen on a number of criteria, and they include the size of the city. So Chengdu, China has 17 million people, and Himeji, Japan has several 100,000. Our current target is really closer to 1.5 million, 1 million. Because we find, just like a marriage, it's much better for the partners to be more equal. That would be equal in size, equal in economic development opportunity. We look for sister cities with rich cultural resources. So Catania, Italy has a very famous opera house. Himeji, Japan, as you can see in this photo, has a beautiful historic castle from the shogunate period. We look for cities with opportunities for education exchanges. So do they have great universities? Are there opportunities for cultural exchange? Chengdu has a very fine symphony orchestra. Hermosillo has a magnificent children's choir. We have hosted that children's choir here, and they have in turn hosted our children's choral there. Calgary, Canada has a magnificent program for young people who play the fiddle, and we have hosted the Calgary Fiddlers here as well. So we look for cities with that rich milieu of arts and culture with which we can exchange. And then we also look at opportunities for economic development. So among our new sisters, Suwon, South Korea, our potential sister actually, Suwon, South Korea is famous as the home of Samsung, and so has a rich semiconductor economic ecosystem. And so we are interested in Suwon in part for that reason. What else to tell you? So when two cities are interested in engaging with each other, they set about almost like dating, courting. We start chatting. So I've been chatting with Suwon for about a year now, looking at what opportunities there are for exchange with Suwon, what we can offer them, what they can offer us. And then the two cities enter into an agreement, a contract that's signed by the mayor of each city. And I have on the wall behind me, right here, the contract that we have, and I'm sorry, I can't take it off the wall. We have with Ennis, Ireland. And I was explaining to Rabbi a few moments ago, it's not unlike a ketubah, where each partner sort of details what their roles and responsibilities are. And then in the case of Ennis's, it's very highly decorated. It's beautiful. So those agreements form the basis of this relationship. And then we invite volunteers from the community to help us with that relationship. So for each of our 10 sister cities and for the Disability Awareness Committee, which covers all of our sisters, we have a group of local volunteers that help us with that relationship, developing programs. So for the Ramat-Gan committee several years ago, they worked very hard to bring a program, a group of youth from Beit Zvi in Ramat-Gan to do local performances of song and dance. We are currently working with the Calgary committee to do a program on cowboy poetry, cowboy poets from Calgary to perform with cowboy poets from Arizona. So those are the kinds of things that those volunteers work on together to help us foster those person-to-person relationships. So here's a little bit you should know, and again, I apologize, it's kind of small, about our structure. So Phoenix Sister Cities is a nonprofit organization that is nearly 50 years old. And that nonprofit organization was created in the 1970s in an effort to provide the city with programs. So the city of Phoenix realized that there was no one department, no one entity within the city that could undertake all the programs that the city hoped we would do with our sisters. And so they spun us off into a nonprofit organization. That nonprofit has a contract with the city to provide the city with those programs. And again, those programs include educational, we'll talk a little bit more about that, arts and culture, business exchanges, and delegations. So we are currently embedded in the Community and Economic Development Department, but we have previously been embedded in the mayor's office, in the city manager's office, in other places in the city over our 50-year history. What we do. So I'd like to talk a little bit about our Youth Ambassador Exchange Program. This is one of our oldest programs and is perhaps one of our most successful. So over the last 30 years, we've been sending Phoenix area youth, typically sophomores and juniors, and dispersing them each summer among our 10 sister cities. So 4 people might go to Chengdu, 2 might go to Prague. So we divvy them up among our 10 sister cities, and they spend 3 weeks in June in that sister city, home hosted by a family in that city. And the whole notion of the program isn't to send these kids on a great trip overseas, although we're hoping it'll be a great trip, but it's to allow them to live with a family in our sister city to genuinely experience what it's like to grow up in Ennis, Ireland, or Himeji, Japan, or Hermosillo, Mexico. After that 3 weeks that they spend in June with their sisters overseas, no, I'm on a program. You can't walk behind me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Somebody's trying to come get some information from me. I apologize. After they spend that 3 weeks in June with their sister city or with their counterpart in their sister city, they then come back here in July, and then they host their counterpart here for 3 weeks. And we get 52 teenagers to shepherd around the city. And that shepherding includes everything from an introduction to American Thanksgiving, American government and jurisprudence, to oftentimes we tackle a particular topic. So one year we looked at sustainability, and it was very instructive to have the kids learn about sustainability in their counterpart's home, and then come here and introduce them to our recycling center and our wastewater treatment facility that dumps out into a wetland. It's a constructed wetland. So it gave the kids a real appreciation for how things are done in different places. The last time we did this program, and we had to suspend it last year because of COVID. So the prior summer, we focused on the role of the media in society, because to be a reporter in Arizona is extremely different from being a reporter in Chengdu, China, or a reporter in Hermosillo, Mexico. Those are very different roles. And so it was great to have the kids sort of look at what that meant and what kind of information was being shared with them and how. We also looked at social media, recognizing that most of our teens spend more time on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter than pretty much anything else. So that's our youth exchange program. If you have any kids or grandkids, ages, again, sophomores or juniors, we will be recruiting for the program, not this summer, but next summer. The children who were not allowed to go overseas last summer because of COVID, we're hoping we can send them overseas this summer. We've just allowed them to continue a year. Whoops, there we go. I want to share a little bit about our Teach Abroad program. So again, with one of our oldest relationships, Himeji, Japan, we actually recruit teachers from Phoenix area to go overseas on a contract with the Department of Education in Himeji, where they serve as teachers for up to 2 years typically, sometimes a little bit longer, maybe an additional year. And they teach in junior high and high school classes in Himeji. They teach English. Depending on their level of skill, some of them are certified teachers themselves. They may teach an entire class themselves, or they may serve as assistant teachers. But then they also offer community classes. So people, they live in a joint housing in a neighborhood in Himeji, and people in the community can come in to learn English. This has actually been a fairly successful program. We've been doing it for a number of years. We send anywhere from 4 to 5 teachers overseas every year. We currently have 13 teachers in Himeji. The program is also supported by the Australian equivalent of our Teach Abroad program. They're called JETS, and they are also there teaching. Our Disability Awareness Committee was actually created by the gentleman who's in the wheelchair in this photo. And the program was created in order to increase the awareness of disabilities and people with disabilities in our sister cities. And over the course of the last 10 years or so, we have been able to support the development of the equivalent of the Americans with Disabilities Act in Hermosillo. We actually helped Hermosillo develop a similar ordinance. We have represented the city of Phoenix at a number of conferences, including, as you see in this one, this group went to Grenoble, France, to represent the city of Phoenix at an international conference on disabilities in France. Every year, the Disabilities Awareness Committee hosts, well, they didn't last year, but again, COVID is a problem, hosts a writing competition, and then they also host an arts competition. And we solicit works from our sister cities. Some of them go back to the sister cities, some of them are donated to us. Solicit works from artists with disabilities in those communities. And then there is an art show here in Phoenix, and they are juried and awarded prizes. And there's even a People's Choice Award. So you can go on that Saturday night to the exhibition and vote for your favorite work of art. Again, in a comparable way, they do something on writing with disabilities or people writing with disabilities. And most recently, there was a winner from Catania, Italy. And if you go to our YouTube channel, or even to our website, you will be able to find the poet reciting her own work. It's really quite beautiful. And then last but not least, we, as I mentioned to you, are a membership organization. And so we encourage people to join our organization in an effort to learn more about our sister cities, to learn more about themselves. Here is Diana Noli Hill, the chair of the Chengdu City Committee, and she's got some Seri Indian face paint on her. And this is from a World Fest program that we did several years ago. But it's about sharing knowledge and building that community here in Phoenix that is interested in the global community. How can we present information to the world and receive information from the world, and then educate Phoenicians about our sisters? So that really brings a conclusion to my slides, but I am hoping that we can have a discussion if there are questions about sister cities that I might be able to answer for you.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much. This was quite informative. And I actually like when you're near City Hall, I think there's like a street post or a signpost that has all the different directions to the sister cities.
And mileage, I think. I think it
Yes,
includes
yes.
mileage, yeah.
So First of all, any questions from any of you? If you do have a question, definitely please do unmute your mic. Stan or Betty, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just curious, do you keep adding cities or you lock in? I mean,
They're adding 3 more.
you're adding 3 more. Do you keep adding? I mean, can this be like 30, 40 cities over a period of time? Or do you have a limit where you cut back on somebody and add new ones?
So we never divorce any of our sisters. So once you're a sister, you're always a sister. And sometimes that means being patient because the program on the other side fell apart. So for example, Calgary has not been a great sister over the last several years. But we have not divorced her. We're keeping her and we're hoping to reignite that relationship. We don't have a predetermined number that we can adopt, but I will tell you that when you get to have lots of sisters, it's hard to pay them enough attention. So I think Chicago, Illinois has 30 sisters. Taipei, Taiwan has more than 60.
Wow.
And that's another thing that we look at. We look at when we cultivate a relationship, are we going to be one of many? Or are we going to be one of few? Because it takes a lot of energy to keep that relationship going and to have dialogue and to create programs. And if you're just one of a bunch, that's really hard.
I have to tell you that we went to the Japanese gardens in Arizona. We're in New York, by the way. We're in New York right now. So we went to the Japanese gardens and we saw that that Himeji is the sister city. We've been to Himeji, and that's a fabulous place. But
Have you been to the gardens there?
yes, it's really beautiful. Really,
We have a sister garden relationship
Oh,
between the Japanese Friendship Garden here and Kokoen in Himeji. And actually that grew out of the relationship that we have as sister cities. So I over the 50 years that Sister Cities has existed, I like to say we've had many children. So Chinese Week started as a Sister Cities program that eventually spun off. The Great Canadian Picnic started as a Sister Cities program that spun off. The garden here created a relationship with the garden in Himeji because of Phoenix Sister Cities. The Irish Cultural Center is here, and we have a strong relationship with Ennis. If you've ever been to the Matsuri Festival, the Japanese festival, that is here, and it started as a Phoenix Sister Cities program. So we've got lots of kids and grandkids at this point too.
Do you,
you don't call them many of them brother cities.
To be completely egalitarian, we could, and inclusive, we could call them brother cities, but Sister Cities just has a much better ring.
do you have any?
You're starting something. I don't know, Rita, you better start okay, what's our new name gonna be, just in case. Just in case Stan has his way. Arlene, you had a question. Go for it.
Do you have any sister city in India? I tuned in late. I was on a Herd Museum program, so I just got into this. Do you have any in India?
Not yet. We're currently looking at 4 potential sister cities in
And
India.
what are they? Because I'm there every year. So just tell me which ones. How about Agra, where the Taj is? Can you get into that?
Agra already has a sister.
Okay,
so
because I'm
we're
there
looking
every year.
Looking at Jaipur, which is near Delhi.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to Jaipur this year.
And then we have 3 potential sisters in southern India, Mysore, Mangalore, and Trivandrum.
Yeah, we're going to two. I'll be in 3 of those this year. But anyway, try and if you can get to Jaipur, at least I could get there back and forth because it's about 4 hours from where I am.
So Arlene, are you volunteering to work for the sister cities? Is that what we're hearing over here?
I will help if I'm there if I can, but I teach English as a second language at Missions of Charity when I can for Mother Teresa, but I haven't done that in a while.
So I would love to have a conversation with you offline, and perhaps the rabbi can connect us.
Okay,
I
sounds
would love
good.
to get your advice.
Okay, I'll be glad to help you. I've been there for 31 years, so.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, do call me. I'll be glad to talk to you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make sure to share that.
Thank
Judy,
you.
you had a question?
Yes, I actually have 2 questions. What are the requirements to be a member of the committees? And the other question is, how do you apply if I qualify for that?
So we are incredibly inclusive. There are no screening criteria, just a desire to work toward the evolution of that relationship, the development of that relationship. And I can share with Rabbi, and he can share with you. On our website are the lists of all the city committees and when they meet. Now, we are currently meeting virtually, much like you're meeting today, because we can't meet in person. It's not safe. But those committees are continuing to meet to develop programs, again, virtual programs with our sister cities.
Okay.
So there's a membership fee, and forgive me, I don't recall what, I think we have like the student fee starts at $25 a year, and then I think the next one is $45. And we ask our members to join to support the organization. But your involvement with the committee is up to you. There are no screening criteria.
Okay. Well, I will certainly look into it because it fascinates me.
Good, good. And you don't have to make a commitment to one city committee right away. You can shop around a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe go to the Grenoble committee or the Ramat-Gan committee or the Calgary committee and just see which one fits best for you in terms of your interests.
Okay, that sounds good. I will do that. Thank you so much.
Good, good.
Question from the chat. Do the families that host the teenagers from Phoenix speak English? And then do our students learn a little of the language of the country they're visiting?
So sometimes they speak English. Usually the students speak English. Their counterparts, our teens' counterparts. But part of the pleasure of developing the relationship is learning that language is only one way to communicate. So our students who go to Chengdu, their counterparts typically speak English, but sometimes the host mother and father don't. And so they find ways to talk to each other that are not dependent on language. It may be, visual. It may be expressive. I tend to talk with my hands. It may be that kind of thing, but they find ways to communicate. And what I am always struck by is how those relationships last even after the exchange. They often continue to correspond with, share photos with those students and their families long after, sometimes decades after they've visited the country. Do they learn some of the language? Sometimes. It just depends on everybody has a different facility for language. And so it just depends on the student's skill set, their desire. Do we encourage them to learn at least some polite conversation, thank you, please, that sort of thing, hello? Absolutely, but not necessarily. Now, an interesting story is a young man who was on a delegation trip with us 3 years ago. His grandfather took him with us when we went to Chengdu, China. Became so fascinated that he came back here, went to college, is studying Mandarin, and intends to have a career in international relations because of that experience. So sometimes it grows into something we don't quite envision.
Nice. So one of the things that you mentioned was that if a city already has a sister city, they can't have two sisters, if I can use that word.
Actually,
Meaning-
no, they can
yeah.
have more. Chicago has 30,
So
and we have 10. And our European counterparts and our Asian counterparts, so Taipei has more than 60. So they
So what's the
can,
reason why for the India cities, for example, I think it was Agra that she said, oh, they already have a sister city.
because we don't want to be one of many sisters.
Okay.
It
So
is,
it's a Phoenix policy.
policy is perhaps a strong word, but I would say it's a preference. And it's a preference because when you have lots of sisters, it's hard to develop those relationships. It's hard to keep up with them. And so it's easier for us because we're such a tiny staff to have perhaps fewer sisters. And we look for sister cities who want to engage with us in a strong way.
Right. Okay. And then I guess one other question for Arizona specific. Are there other cities in our state that also are involved in the sister cities programs?
Many. Tucson, Flagstaff, Scottsdale, Fountain Hills, and we all belong to the Arizona Sister Cities organization, where we get together and share information, again, virtually for the most part. Tempe has a strong Sister Cities program. In fact, they have, if you've ever been to their Oktoberfest, that is in part a celebration of their relationship with their German sister city.
Okay, interesting. I mean, it's pretty cool. Well, it's so much, there's so many things that are happening in the state you don't even realize. So what got you involved? Like, where did your passion grow for this?
So I am by training an anthropologist. I went to U of A. I actually pursued a PhD that I did not complete. Have worked cross-culturally for most of my career, and then came back to Phoenix to be closer to my mom and dad. They were still alive then, they're gone now. But came back to Phoenix to be near my mom and dad, and as a result, wound up working for the city. I'm actually a city employee assigned to serve the nonprofit as its president CEO, part of that contract that the nonprofit has with the city. The city gives the nonprofit 2 employees to work on this program. So I've been here for a little over 3 years now. My predecessor had been in this role for 27 years. I don't think I'm going to do it quite that long, but I've enjoyed my time very much because I get to work on things that I'm passionate about, and that's cross-cultural understanding. I think that the key to lasting peace in the world, I really believe this, is shaking hands with the person that you may not like, but that you need to learn to live with.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky. I get to work with wonderful volunteers, all of whom are, here in the community, very active, very committed. I get to talk to people about everything from, as I mentioned to you earlier in February, when the Taiwanese city councilman was here and we talked about COVID, before anybody was really talking about it here in the US, to right now I'm corresponding with Suwon, South Korea, to figure out how we can do a Korean language institute here in Phoenix. So we cover the whole range of things.
Fascinating. Here is another question in the chat. Well, okay, so Judy was asking, where have you gone in the 3 years you have been in your position? I assume she means traveling wise.
So as part of Sister Cities, I've been to Chengdu, China, Hermosillo, Mexico, Calgary, Canada, and Taipei, Taiwan. So four out of 10.
Okay, and then the other question is there a way to have a Penpal program with these cities for our high school or junior high students? When I was in high school, our class was given names of students to write in 2 other, I guess, countries and Hawaii. I wrote my pen pal for 50 years and visited her as an adult.
So we actually had pre-COVID a program that was starting with Wilson Elementary, and we were working on enabling students from Wilson Elementary to have pen pals in Grenoble, France, and Calgary, Canada. We've had a really difficult time with a couple of our school-based programs. We also have a sister schools program with Taipei, Taiwan, where we match up schools in Phoenix, approximately 4 schools in Phoenix with 4 schools in Taipei, and they work together on STEM projects, science, technology, engineering, and math. The problem we've had since COVID is that the schools have been so consumed with other issues, just doing remote learning, if they're open, keeping safe, that it's been very hard to engage teachers and principals. I'm hoping that we can go back to that in some way, shape, or form once, I don't know that we'll ever be completely post-pandemic because we might be living with this for a while, but once we have a more normal school year and perhaps classrooms, it will be easier for teachers to engage in that.
Actually, I just wonder if, Zoom might open up more opportunities because of that. We now have gone so virtual, you can connect in so many I'm going to say better ways or interactive ways. I don't know, better.
So absolutely in those places where time allows, but if we're 15 hours apart,
Right.
it's very hard to find a time that works in both places. Sometimes we will, for example, with the Sister Schools program, we had a platform that the kids could upload videos to each other. So that was one way for us to get around the time problem. But that's even a difficulty with Ennis, Ireland. We're trying to find a time for the mayor of Ennis to talk to the community here in Phoenix, and finding a time that works for her and a time that works for us. It's either too late there or too early here, or it can be a challenge. Calgary and Hermosillo are pretty easy in that regard. And so folks from both places, Calgary and Hermosillo, participate in our local city committee meetings. They join us by WebEx or Zoom.
Right. Yeah, that could be, the time difference could be challenging. We've had presenters on 5 a.m. their time, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Any other questions? This is very enlightening. I don't see any other chat questions. So if someone does have a question, definitely please do unmute your mic. While people are thinking, just heads up, on Wednesday we're having a presentation by a PhD student, Dr. David Krantz. It is all about Israel's water situation. Is it a Mideast oasis or a Cadillac desert? So that should be a really interesting presentation. The gentleman presenting also has a number of Jewish startups that he's involved with sustainability. So I'm sure he'll share about that. And on Thursday, being that it's close to Purim, we have In the Kitchen with Benita to make Hamantaschen. So that should be fun. But any other questions? I know today's...
I had a suggestion. What about having the students do a pandemic diary and then put all the entries together, and then you could use it as a fundraiser?
So it's very interesting that you say that, because last summer when our students couldn't travel, we hosted a video exchange. And part of it was to take their cameras and go out, if they could, go out into their neighborhoods and document their experience, because we wanted to foster conversation about how do you live in relative isolation, where you may be. And last summer, despite the fact that we may have thought we were suffering, some of the other communities in the world were having a far more difficult time with COVID. Italy, France in particular. Ireland was on a 3-week lockdown where you couldn't go more than a block from home without some kind of dire reason. And you couldn't even go on walkabout for exercise. You had to confine yourself to your own yard. So we tried to get the kids to share that with each other. But we didn't do anything more with that because we didn't want them thinking we were going to use it for some other purpose. We really wanted them to share with each other and to be open and to feel free to do that. But I like this idea. I like this pandemic diaries.
Yeah, because, you know, we're all going through this and we all have to deal with the same kind of issues. And I think it would be an interesting cross-cultural event.
I like that idea very much. If you look at our social media, we tend to post, and we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We tend to post stories from our sisters, other cities. And so we've had magnificent videos of people singing to each other in Italy, and groups of people getting together to chant in India. Not currently a sister, but an area of interest for us.
Well,
so,
here in New York, especially in New York City, 7 o'clock, everybody goes out. And they've done videos of that, and that's really true.
You know, we worked out something since we're in the house so much. We locked all the knives.
Anyway, just an idea.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Well, Rabbi, thank you so much for the invitation. This has been fun.
Thank you very much. This was really informative, and I assume you'll have some new members because of this. Not assume, I mean, I hope. So
Thank you for that. And we welcome you. Again, we're meeting virtually, so no
Makes
worries.
it easier. It actually makes it easier to have,
does.
scheduling conflicts are less often because of that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I appreciate this.